Okay, I think we'll make a start. Welcome everyone to today's meeting of the Sutherland Community Partnership. Good to have everyone, and thank you for attending. I think we'll start off with just, is there any apologies? Scott, Miranda, is there any?
There is apologies, Colin, but I'll not go through the list just now.
Okay.
I'll get them put in the
No,
minutes.
that's fine. Okay, perfect. Thanks for that. Right. First of all, I've looked through the minutes from the last meeting. Is everyone content with the minutes as they are? Has anybody got anything they want to add to the minutes or any comment on? There's an action at the bottom there which was relating to SSEN and the Homes Group. I think that'll be covered by the Homes Group in due course anyway, so that's fine. I'm not going to go into that at the moment. But if everyone else is okay, I'm not seeing any hands, so I'll take that as an okay. The meetings are true reflection of the last meeting, so that's fine. Okay, thanks very much. I'm going to have to play about with this minute, the agenda a wee bit. The agenda will be roughly what it is, but there's a couple of things I'm going to put into the agenda before we come on to item number 3, which is Gail with the HOIP. So first of all, I think at the last meeting I said, and this might happen at today's meeting as well, so apologies if it does, but generally anyone who's towards the bottom of the agenda, it'll, depending on how the meeting goes, you might run short in time. So it was the same at the last meeting. So we had, I think it was Trish Matthews at the last meeting was given an update around Highland, and she was running short in time, and I said that I would try and take her to the very beginning of today's agenda. So, but I think, is it Kirsty? I don't think Trish is able to make it, so I don't know. Is Kirsty here? Is Kirsty gonna? Can't see. If not, I can come back to it later on. I know she may mention that she was.
Not so far, Callum. No.
Not so far. No, that's fine. Okay, I'll come back to it later on.
Alyssa there, Callum. Alyssa's there for High Life Highland.
Okay, I don't know if Alyssa's. I'm not
Sorry,
going to see
no,
on the
top. I'm not briefed on that. Apologies.
No, I wasn't going to. No, that's fine. I won't. No, that's fine. We'll come on to. Oh, here, Kirsty, just coming in. I don't know. I can come back into it later on in the agenda anyway, but don't know. I'll come back into it later on the agenda. Right, that's fine. So, the other thing that's not on the agenda here, and which is just a last minute kind of addition. So, is around about well, effectively a crisis in the Hubs United group, which I actually have no knowledge of myself until I just got an email the other day. So I don't know, is Andrea or Deirdre? I don't know if one of you want to give 10 minutes about just what the situation is, probably introducing the topic as a whole, first of all, just for those who might not have much knowledge of the matter, and then kind of introducing what the situation is, Andrea or Deirdre. Oh, Deirdre, I think you're on mute, Deirdre. Yeah.
My apologies, Chair.
No,
Andrea will lead off and I'll follow. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Deirdre. Hi, I'm Andrea Madden. I'm the chair of the Hubs United group. I think the first thing to do is to actually clarify what hubs we're talking about. So we're actually talking about Cayley House in Kinloch Burvey, the Aston Centre in Lochinver, Bradbury Centre in Bonar Bridge, the Kyle Centre in Tong. Also associated, but not in Sutherland, is the Dunbeath Centre. These were all previously daycare service providers under social work. And if we go back to 2010, 2012, during the redesign and all the strategies then, they were reshaped, redesigned into community hubs that took over the provision of those services. So that is providing social care, daycare support for like older people, people with dementia, people with learning disabilities, people with mental health issues, and sort of people with substance abuse difficulties. There was only 2 daycare centres that didn't go through that redesign back in 2010, 2012, and that was Sinclair Court up in Melvick and the daycare centre at Seaforth House in Goldsbury. So they all went through that, set up as new provision of social care daycare within Sutherland, all on 3-year contracts. The difficulty as time has gone on, that those contracts were created but with no annual uplift. Back in February 2023, the collective group of the hubs got in touch with NHS Highland and said that they were facing financial difficulty and that we needed to meet to talk about what the future would look like and how we could address the standstill funding, which then was well over a decade. At that point, it actually took over 6 months to actually get any meaningful discussion with NHS Highland. And I do want to make it quite clear that what we're talking about now is not difficulties with the local district team. So we're not talking about our immediate NHS partners. We're talking a little bit higher in the management roles. So 6 months in to us first asking for help, we had a meeting with Pamela Stott, and then Pamela Kremin, the then chief executive, promised a period of short life working group to resolve the issue. 5 months passed, we hadn't managed to reach a resolution. The promise of co-production wasn't working, wasn't following through. So they offered a 12-month extension, which has taken us to where we are now. So we're now at the point where things haven't been resolved without any discussion or any communication. A letter went out at the beginning of February just saying that the hubs would receive a 3% uplift. That the hubs responded to say that that didn't meet the financial difficulties that they were facing and that they expressed during the previous 2 years of discussions, and that still left them at risk. And could we meet? We heard nothing back from that letter that went at the beginning of February, which is why we issued a statement on Monday to more clearly define the actual risk to the social care provision, in particular relevant here to Sutherland. So why are these hubs so important in Sutherland? Well, I think we need to think through back from 2010, and we've lost 2 care homes since then in Sutherland. The first one that went was Ascent, and that's kind of probably feels a little bit long forgotten. We lost the Care Alliance, which was the care at home and community support across the northwest of Sutherland. And to date, no other independent sector provider has been able to pick up and successfully deliver that contract. The remaining daycare provision has closed, so that Sinclair Court and Goldsby have lost daycare, and there's been nothing put in place. We've lost the respite unit for learning disability in Brora at a point when the government strategy is to keep people with learning disability in the community. And as well as all this, one hub has actually had their finance cut in that 15-year period, whilst receiving no annual uplift. So it's not really for me to discuss the individual finances of the hubs, but I think perhaps it's important that you all realise kind of what level of finance that we're talking about here. Those 5 hubs, but I'm talking predominantly now relating to Sutherland, the total finance for those 5 hubs is less than 30,000 per year for all of them. The hub that receives the greatest financial support is probably just over 60,000. The one that receives the least is probably around 40,000. So we're talking about communities running social care support, community day centres for around 50, 60,000 on standstill budgets since 2010. It's easy to see why they're struggling. It's easy to see how much money the communities have raised through grants and through their own fundraising activities. It's not fair always to measure one set of services against another, but I can tell you that the investment in social care support at daycare level in communities across the whole of Sutherland is equal to 1 daycare centre provided in another area. So it just shows the disparity between the investment in Sutherland and the investment elsewhere. If we lose these community resources, which are right across our Sutherland area, if we lose these, there's no fallback. As I've just gone through, we've pretty much lost everything already. So it is critical that we keep these services in place. On Monday, again, the hubs reached out to say, can we get round the table based on this promise of co-production, this promise of co-creating and power sharing and decision making. Actually, what this has resulted in to now is that our statement and request on Monday has been placed into the feedback team with NHS Highland, which makes us feel like we've just been buried in the bureaucracy of a complaint system rather than actually getting round the table to sort the difficulties within the services across Sutherland. I think that's probably a good place for you to come in, Deirdre.
Oh, Deirdre, you're on mute again, I think.
Apologies, Chair, I'm
Yeah,
out
no
of
worries.
practice. The only thing I would add to Andrea's word is that our hubs provide a service which is widely recognised as a model of good practice. And if you follow the debates in the Scottish Parliament, that our hubs, again, are exactly the type of model which Scottish Government and NHS Highland would like to roll out across Highland. So I think it underlines the importance of what we actually are providing in Sutherland and how we got there. I'm going to be addressing how we see the role of the partnership and how we see you helping us. But firstly, I'd like to say I'm delighted to see the partnership in good heart. And last night I read the minutes of your last meeting, and there were two things that jumped out at me, which I feel reflect much of what lies at the heart of our hubs issue. Now, the first was the partnership itself, which Callum, you said, is recognised or continues to be recognised as the best in Highland. So why is that? And it's because in Sutherland we naturally recognise the value and the good sense of working in partnership, collaboratively and in cooperation. We simply see it as the right thing to do. And we're also reasonable and nice people, you know, and we get on well for the most part, it has to be said. But I think that's critically important. The second point, and it's not often, in fact, I never remember a time I've locked horns with my former ward manager, but somebody pointed out that Sutherland needs a strong voice. And Phil countered by the fact that Sutherland did have a strong voice, referencing MSPs who had tabled parliamentary questions on specific Sutherland issues. So there's a harsh reality here, which I think it's very important to touch on, because I firmly believe that Sutherland is always going to be in a David versus Goliath scenario, which makes it difficult for us to deal with things. Now, very briefly, the island communities, Orkney, Shetland and the Western Isles, have a special protected status. It's enshrined in law. Each island community has its own dedicated MP. They have their own MSPs. They have their own very well-funded councils, and they're protected by a ministerial responsibility. And as I say, that's enshrined in law. Now, if you take the geographical masses of the Western Isles, Orkney and Shetland, they could be relocated in Sutherland. We could have them. We'd love to have them and their money. I have no issue with the islands whatsoever. I really don't. I just firmly believe we should have that same status. So where does that leave Sutherland? What do we have? We have no legal protection, none whatsoever. We share an MP and an MSP with Caithness and Rossshire, different communities altogether. We sit as a part of Highland Council, we sit as a part of NHS Highland, both very, very big beasts. And as we all say, cover the size of Belgium. So throw in the Central Belt and Sutherland, in actuality, has a very small voice, and it brings me back to a David and Goliath scenario. So having Sutherland issues raised in Holyrood is vitally important, and indeed we are working on that at the moment, because it gets issues straight to the heart of government where they need to be addressed. But it's only one part of our arsenal, and we can't afford to have Sutherland issues raised on a piecemeal issue by issue basis. We need a voice, an internal voice or force, and I don't know what that is, but that deals with Sutherland issues day by day and month by month. It does not stop. So it's not reactionary, it's proactive. I firmly believe that. So a voice that's beating our own drum. And I think importantly, the partnership needs to be very much at the heart of that. It would have a key role. But returning to what our hub communities need from the partnership, you've heard from Andrea, and I'm going to refer now to a recent report. It's just a couple of weeks old, published by the Scottish Human Rights Commission. And in respect of Sutherland, there are 11 categories, and they're ragged red, amber, and green. Now, of those 11 categories, 7 are ragged red. So it's very sobering. Now, in respect to social care, and this is Sutherland, it quotes the dire reality of social care in Sutherland, adding that our situation is exacerbated by budget reductions or indeed the complete elimination of previous services without mitigating measures. And it is, as I say, very sobering indeed. And I think it's part of the evidence that we need. And I certainly commend the report to you as a partnership. Now, as a group, the hubs have circulated our briefing paper far and wide. We've sent out 70 emails to those people with responsibility for social care. So that's from Scottish ministers, Highland Council, NHS Highland, our MP and our MSPs and our community councils. And what we're doing is seeking your support today to help us get the key people round the table. And I think really we're seeking solutions. We say that repeatedly. And we've been round the table for a very long time. I mean, 18 months is just very, very long, too long. And we don't need processed anymore. We're processed more than a tin of spam. So what we seek is the support of the partnership to organise the key people in order that we can sit around the table and get this sorted out urgently. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for your forbearance.
Thanks, Deirdre, and thanks, Andrea. So can I ask a question? Just see the hubs we're talking about. So I know, Andrea, I don't know, Deirdre, I know you're talking there about the kind of timeline of the kind of discussions with NHS Highland and so on and so forth. And maybe you've said this, apologies if you hadn't, I didn't pick up on it properly, but where are we at then in terms of where does this become a, where does the timeline go from here, if you want to put it like that? And what happens if a timeline doesn't positively progress, if you want to put it like that?
Yeah, I'll come in on that. We're basically at a stalemate. We seem to be in the position where NHS Highland are stating that they believe it's the responsibility of the hubs to fund the gap. And we've been told that we need to look at wind farm and other grant funding. The hubs have made the strong case that it is nigh on impossible to get grant funding for what is seen as core services for health or social care provision. And that seems to be a complete point of stalemate. From the position of the hubs, they're not all in the same financial position. Some are in a more dire position than others, but for certain, without resolution, some will close this year. And the likelihood that the ones that will close will be in the most remote and areas of the greatest need. We have spoken to NHS Highland and said, we were saying it 2 years ago that you cannot just close the service without looking at the impact. Basically, we got no response to that. We have looked at the impact and we looked at, say, the loss of Brora Hub, which provides support for learning disabilities. we have been told by Key, who provides support for learning disabilities, if that hub closed, it's not just about cost. They actually just do not have the capacity to pick up the service loss from the hub closing. If we lose the hub in Kinloch Burvey, then there is nobody. There is nobody for us to question about whether they've got the capacity. And some of these services will go this year.
Okay. Does anybody want to come in with anything before I kind of come up with any kind of suggestions or hold on, I've no idea who's first. Fiona.
I just wanted to really, from my perspective, echo Andrea and Deirdre. We're internally, we are trying everything we can. We're not really getting anywhere, to be perfectly honest. But we're really trying at a district level. Yeah. I'm really disappointed to hear that they've put it through a complaints process, and I'll escalate that today. To say that actually this isn't about a complaint, it's about we need to sit down and sort this out. The hubs it will be catastrophic for us if we lose our hubs across the board. And yeah, it's just utterly frustrating.
Okay. Thanks, Fiona. I'll let you raise that. I appreciate it. I mean, Andrea's obviously kind of pointed to the fact that there was none of this was about anyone locally within the NHS. I think it's more a kind of corporate stance across the Highland region. Yeah. So, but if there is anything that you can raise, then I think this kind of looks, as I understand it, as being a kind of position that's been taken that might actually need to be looked at as much as anything else. Richard.
Thanks, Colin. I think David was before me, but I'll jump the queue. I don't mind.
Oh, sorry. I carry on. Richard, sorry.
I think what Deirdre and Andrew have been saying to us is something that we're well aware of. The focus on Sutherland has been minimal to non-existent for such a long time now, and the partnership, as Deirdre so quickly said, and by the way, Deirdre, we've all missed you. The partnership has been strong, because, as Deirdre said, we work well together, and all the partner agencies have been involved throughout, and that's given us our strength. But as a group, we are struggling to actually really promote Sutherland, because there's not that attention being paid to us at a central level. And I think this is a prime example of where we are. And I think we need to be given the hubs all the support we possibly can as a partnership. And I'll touch on that as well when I'm talking about SRI as well. But it's really, really important that we put all our weight we can behind this, because it's a very basic but very, very valuable service. Yeah. That's absolutely necessary across the county.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Richard. Sorry, David, go for it. Sorry, missed you there.
Oh, thanks, Chair, and thanks for that update, Andrew and Deirdre. It's really saddening to hear that, but really important. And the reason that I put my hand up is basically all the statistics we're being shown is that we are an ageing community. As much as we want to focus on trying to help attract more younger people to live and work here and to try and help reverse depopulation, we have to pay cognizance to the fact that we have a lot of older people living here, and we've got a lot of older people who will need care and are going to need that locally. And so this is vitally important that we can get this, and with the Human Rights Commission up last week and focusing on Sutherland, and this was one of the areas where they identified this lack of care going forward. So this is an absolute priority that the partnership supports this going forward. It's a very challenging issue, because we all know the situation with public sector finances at the moment, but the reality is we can't continue to go on sacrificing services and sacrificing Sutherland. As Deirdre said earlier, we're stuck between Caithness and Ross-shire, but I always say we've been stuck between Dounreay and Nig for years, and we've never had the high wages that came from those, and we've always kind of been a little bit the poor cousin, and we've got to do something to put our our head above the parapet and say enough's enough. And I think this is a good cause to get behind because it's vital for the future of our communities.
Thanks, David. Jim?
Yeah, I spoke to Deirdre about this earlier on this week, and Deirdre has given me the list of target email contacts to have a go at. So that's my action, which I'll undertake over the weekend. But it's what we can do as a partnership is enough just to actually hit those same targets, Deirdre, Andrea.
Yeah, I think we're getting nods there. So I'll
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Jim. Gail?
Morning, Andrea. So my name is Gail Prince. I'm Partnership Development Manager working with Highland Community Planning Partnerships. So I received your email into our generic email box earlier in the week. So I tried to speak to somebody from the senior officers that I work with from NHS about it, but she's actually on holiday at the moment. So I have a meeting later on today to ask advice about where to forward it to and what to do with it. So I just wanted to reassure you from a Highland Community Planning Partnership perspective, we have received it. I just don't quite know what to do with it while that person's on holiday. So I'm trying to do that today for you. And I'll let you know if I've got any further forward.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gail. And Kirsty.
Morning, everyone. Hi, I'm standing in for Trish Matthews today. I work for the Adult Learning Service, and we'll be doing an input shortly. But I suppose I just wanted to express my sympathies. It sounds a really distressing situation for everyone, Andrea, and I think there does need to be the acknowledgement that these services are the glue that keep communities together, and that the loss of these will have impacts on other services. So I think this is the looming disaster that happens when services just get cut, because they will at some point hit another service. So I think it's about obviously avoiding that chaotic situation to occur. But I did share in the chat just some reference to that report on the Human Rights Commission, because we've been looking at that recently within our service and just looking at running additional training around rural poverty, and I would be happy to kind of make that available to the partnership, because it's quite insightful. Just that although in statistics, SIMD and things like that, Sutherland, certain areas will not fall under as being classed as areas of multiple deprivation. I think the evidence shows that the significant challenges for rural communities are much higher and much starker. I just also wonder, as a partnership, whether we should be kind of looking to other local authorities around how they're responding to rural poverty and how they are having a stronger voice nationally. There is the Rural Poverty Alliance Network, and I know Aberdeenshire are currently involved in a project with them around rural poverty, and I just kind of wonder whether the scope in Highland for our local authority potentially to be involved in work with them as well, so that it is keeping our keeping a higher presence at a national level and kind of keeping ourselves much more on the map in terms of what so when cuts are happening nationally, that we have a better standing to avoid those.
Okay, thank you, Kirsty. Michael?
Yeah, thanks, Callum. There's a bit of history here because when I was chair of the Bradbury Centre way back in the millennium years, the very same problem that we're seeing today was happening with Bradbury there. And I had a very high-powered meeting with Alison McGee, Rhoda Grant, and Rita Finlayson at the time. And we managed to actually push and get the NHS to sort things out there for the care. So yeah, I don't know if this is any help for this present situation, but yeah, I think you just have to keep bashing away here.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Michael. I'm just aware that I'm kind of way off the agenda now, so can I make a couple of suggestions, and I'm open to correction here because I'm just one voice here, but can I make one suggestion that as a partnership that we kind of try and slot this into Sutherland Cares? That would seem the obvious place for it in terms of a subgroup. And if we kind of ask Sutherland Cares to consider how, as a partnership, we can actually influence this. My suggestion would be writing to those who actually who have influence on the matter, and then on top of that, potentially looking to pull people together, as Andrea's mentioned, or Deirdre mentioned. I think that would be the obvious suggestion there. I think beyond that, I'm open to it. If anybody else has any other kind of views around about how, as a partnership, we can assist, I'm happy to hear that. Richard?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to go, Colin. But in the interim, could we write as a partnership to the Chief Executive of NHS Highland? Let's go right to the top here and express our concern and disappointment that we find ourselves in this situation. At the end of the day, what the NHS, as far as I understand it, is looking at is keeping people in their own homes and providing care in the community, and that's crucial to a lot of the issues that they're trying to address at the moment. So it makes no sense for them to go down this road, and we're offering a very cheap but very sustainable solution to their issues. And it's very short-sighted of them to think that they're going to stop funding for these vital services that we're providing in Sutherland. So if we could write that letter to the chief exec of NHS Highland, I think that would at least get some kind of credence. Thanks.
Okay, perfect. I'm happy to. I'll take an action, and I'll catch up with Scott Miranda as well about it. And so I'll take it. You can note that as an action. I'll take that forward myself. David?
I agree with Richard. I think there's a matter of urgency here, and I think it would be good for the SCP to get behind it, conscious for two reasons. One is the capacity of the Sutherland Cares Group, and also the capacity of the partnership, given that our staffing budget ends at the end of this month. So I think we need to act on this quickly as a partnership and support the reality that these services are vital for the future of Sutherland, and community planning is pretty futile if services just keep disappearing like this. So I think I would suggest initially we support this and write as a partnership, and then perhaps the mechanics of it can go to Sutherland Cares with some support and things like that. But I think there's an urgency to get the support in there ASAP.
Okay. Right, no, that's perfect. Right, I'll take an action. I'll write to under my role as chair to the chief exec of NHS Highland, and then we can slot it on a kind of longer term basis or medium term basis. We can slot it into Sutherland Cares as well to make sure there's some kind of work there. Ruan, you want to come
in? Yeah, apologies. I'm having a tap at the same time. Literally on these issues, Callum, as we all know, we're somewhat cash rich in the Highlands, but we can't touch it because it's wind farm money, etc. I'm sure this discussion has happened before at the partnership, but surely it's time that we start to lobby the politicians, the elected members, etc., that we can get access to that pot of money to benefit the communities.
Yeah, I think probably, I don't think you'll get any dissenting voices.
No, I'm sure I don't.
Yeah,
sure.
Yes, no, I think that's absolutely, that would go without saying. And I think it's, I think it goes back to trying to get our voice heard. That's probably the simplest way of putting it. And often, I think probably of everyone here, there's a lot of people completely agree with what you're saying, Ruan. And I think it's just a case of trying to keep that going. And it goes back to a wee bit what Deirdre was saying as well about maybe trying to get a more focused, powerful voice at times that for Sutherland as a whole, that maybe, but no, completely agree. So
I mean, Callum, would it be worth getting the media involved in this one?
I'd probably have to kind of bow to Andrea and Deirdre there, because it's probably something that I certainly on behalf of SCP we can write to the chief executive, and then we can take it forward as a subgroup. I think in terms of any media representation, I think that'll probably be over to Andrea and Deirdre, unless anybody else feels differently. I'm kind of quite aware as well of having a clear strategy about what we're doing there, rather than actually sometimes that can have a negative influence as well as a positive one. But so I think I would probably kind of leave that over to Andrea and Deirdre to kind of consider going forward themselves. And on behalf of the SCP, I'll take an action to write to the chief executive, and then we'll put it into Sutherland Cares as well, and hopefully take it forward like that. But Phil?
Yeah, thanks, Callum. I wonder whether it's worth writing to the chair of the NHS board, NHS Highland board, as well as the chief exec, to get it on their table as well.
Yeah, I'll do both. That's fine. No, I'll do that as well, Phil. Thanks for that. Perfect. Okay, right. I'll maybe kind of pull that together now. Thank you, everyone, for your input there, and it probably just highlights the fact that actually there is people care. I mean, there's 40 odd people here, and we all care about Sutherland, and that's the bottom line of why we're here. So, Deirdre and Andrea, thanks for your time, and hopefully we will try and kind of push that forward in a kind of purposeful way.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Perfect. Right, sorry, I'm kind of aware now. I'm kind of way off piece in terms of timing. So, Gail, I think number 3, Hoyp. I don't know if you can try and keep something to somewhere around about the 10-minute mark. So try and get somewhere back on the schedule.
No pressure, Callum.
So there you go. There's your challenge.
Thanks very much. And most people around this table, I know and know me. So maybe chip in after 10 minutes and go, right, stop now, Gail. Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. I know quite a few of the faces on the call and from my time with the Sutherland partnership. So it's nice to see a lot of you again and see some new faces as well. So I've been asked to do a bit of an overview and a quick and yeah, very quick, apparently according to Callum now, overview of the Highland Outcome Improvement Plan. So I will do that. So I'll try and keep to time as per instruction. But also I can make my slides available for sharing as well. So if I don't cover everything word by word, then I will share them out as well. So hopefully my slides will go into slideshow mode in a wee second, and you'll be able to see that. Somebody can confirm because you've all disappeared off my screen because I'm only on my laptop.
Perfect, Gail.
Yeah, thanks, Callum.
Perfect.
So, like I say, so I'm going to touch on the revised 2024-2027 Highland Outcome Improvement Plan, or HOIP, for easiness sake. And my name's Gail Prince. I'm Partnership Development Manager, so I work with Highland Community Planning Partnership. So just a little bit of background. Community planning came into being basically through the Community Empowerment Act, which was implemented in 2015. I'm sure many people around this table are aware of the Act and what it is, but Part 2 of the Act itself focuses on community planning. So community planning is about the process where public sector partners work together with communities to plan and deliver services, which does touch into what we've just been talking about with Andrea and Deirdre there. So in terms of community planning in Highland, the Community Planning Partnership is the overarching framework of community planning delivery, and comprises of various partnerships and other groups as well. I'll come on to that in a wee bit later. And it demonstrates the commitment to work together with a focus on tackling inequalities, which is a statutory duty as part of the Act that I mentioned already. So it is about, like I say, public sector working with communities and delivering and planning services. And the partnership as a whole includes NHS Highland, Scottish Fire and Rescue, Police Scotland, Highlands Enterprise and Highland Council, and at a Highland level also includes third sector partners, HTSI and High Life Highland as well. So in terms of the Highland Outcome Improvement Plan, within the Act there's a statutory duty which is to create a local outcomes improvement plan. So our HOIP is the LOIP that is mentioned in the Act, and I'll go into it in a bit more detail, but the Highland Community Planning Partnership reviewed the original HOIP just in the last 12 months or so. Within that, within the statutory duties, there is a requirement to create locality plans. So in Highland, there was a number created kind of 2017, and going forward with the support of the Partnership Development Team, which is the team I manage, we are going to reproduce those as community partnership plans, and there'll be one per partnership area. And I'll come on to and a little bit more about them in terms of their content. They'll be about an area profile, inequalities and identified priorities within the local area, using a lot of the data that's out there. Kirsten mentioned a little bit of that previously, and identifying the priority localities within each community partnership area, which brings me into the community partnerships. Obviously, Sutherland is one of 9. So Highland Community Planning Partnership is divided into the 9 community partnerships at local level, recognising that the geography of Highland is really large. I think somebody said that earlier on the call as well. And it is about, the partnerships are tasked with facilitating localised engagement, outcomes and delivery, and, working broadly towards the HOIP as well. And then there's my team on the last point on the slide there, which is about supporting the CPP as a whole, the board, the community partnerships, and working to align priorities between the HOIP and locally. So in terms of the HOIP itself, the original HOIP was launched in 2017, and it focused on 5 core outcomes and an overarching vision, which was about working together to reduce inequalities in Highland. Since the publication of that HOIP, which was a 10-year outcome improvement plan, individual public and third sector partners have updated their own strategic plans and their own priorities, and they've done a lot of stakeholder and community engagement as part of that. Additionally, public and third sector partners have faced unprecedented challenges since 2020, which we're all very aware of, the COVID-19 pandemic, cost of living crisis, and just touching on what we were talking about earlier, they are increasing financial pressures on services. So recognising these challenges, the CPP, the Community Planning Partnership, initiated a review of the HOIP, which took place in 2024, and that resulted in the 24-27 HOIP being produced. So throughout, the kind of engagement started, or the kind of research phase started about December 23, and then first 6 months of 2024 was all about engagement sessions and gathering feedback and various in-person, online events and surveys and lots of different things. And then from there, a couple of draft improvement plans and a delivery plan that sits alongside that, and performance framework have been created, but I'll come on to them in a wee bit more detail. So broadly speaking, the table on your screen there on this slide is the HOIP, and it is the kind of summary of what was evidenced through the engagement that we did during 2024. So as a reminder, the HOIP is an overarching strategic plan for the Community Planning Partnership, and it sets out the vision and the strategic priorities, which you'll see in the top part of the box on your screen there. So the updated vision is about maximising opportunities and tackling inequality to build a thriving Highlands for all. And then the strategic priorities that have been developed are people, place and prosperity. People is about enabling people to live independently, safe and well within their communities. Place is about working in partnership to develop sustainable and resilient local communities. And prosperity is about creating opportunities for all people and places to prosper and thrive economically. I won't read out the rest of the boxes there, but the shared principles on the screen about the commitment from the partners to work together, and to maximise opportunities and tackle inequalities. And then the bottom section of the table on your screen is about the outcomes and the commitment from the Community Planning Partnership as a whole to work together to tackle inequalities. The HOIP is very much about focusing on intervention and prevention and addressing the root causes of inequality. And we are on a journey to start to implement everything that's on the screen there, and there has been some updates and some changes in terms of how the Community Planning Partnership as a whole works. I hope you're counting my minutes, because I'm nearly there and I'm going at 100 miles an hour. So in summary, the 2024-2027 Highland Outcome Improvement Plan has been developed, and within that, and sitting alongside that, there is a delivery plan, and the delivery plan has picked out and kind of identified from all the research and engagement that we've done 7 cross-cutting themes which has been taken from the feedback and research, like I say, and these are the priority kind of issues that the community planning partnership will look at over the period of the HOIP up to 2027. When we were looking at and analysing all the feedback and engagement information that we had back, and you know, the other strategic plans that are out there, the individual partners plans, etc., it was really important that the cross-cutting themes that are identified are cross-cutting in nature in terms of people, place, and prosperity, and they are you know, all working towards the outcomes that were on the previous slide as well. And it's about adding value. So where can the community planning partnership add value? So it's not about duplicating work. It's not about you know, repeating what's already going on, but it is about ensuring that, you know, the community planning partnership can add value and deliver against the cross-cutting themes that have been identified. I wanted to keep this as short as I could, so I'll list the 7, but like I say, in the notes that I'll put out with the slides, you'll be able to see those 7, because taking that in at the speed that I talk can be quite difficult. So the 7 are connecting people and places, whole family and community-based approaches, employment, employability, community wealth building, housing, shared approaches to commissioning, and aligning partnership practices. So within that, or from the delivery plan, as a community planning partnership, we've had a look at the delivery structure. So that's the little colourful pie chart on the slide there. That's still in development, and there is a kind of update of the different elements of the pie chart going on, and identifies the different kind of delivery mechanisms that the partnership as a whole, as a framework, is using to deliver against the HOIP as a whole. So they include delivery groups, the community partnerships themselves. We're establishing a couple of new short life working groups. My team, the delivery partners, delivery partnerships as well, and something that we call the partnership coordinating group, which is where I can bring the partnerships and partners and the community partnerships together to share information, learn from each other, get updates from a Highland perspective as to what's going on. And we actually have a meeting next Friday about that, and we'll be talking a bit about getting updates about housing and community wealth building at that event as part of that agenda. So within the Highland Outcome Improvement Plan and the HOIP, what we also are developing is a performance framework. That sounds way fancier than it probably needs to be, but it is a set of indicators, and they are population themed indicators for the community partnership to planning partnership to look at where progress has been made or not made against inequalities in Highland. So it's about national and regional data to measure the overall progress of the HOIP between 24 and 27, and it'll support in terms of reporting and measuring measuring progress and things like that. So that's been developed as well. And finally, thank you very much. Hopefully I kept to my 10 minutes. I'll share a link to the Community Planning Partnership website in the chat. If you're not aware of that website, there's lots more information in there about, and the delivery plans and the performance framework diagram and things like that are there. And you can download a copy of the full 24-27 Highland Outcome Improvement Plan. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Gail. And that was perfectly timed. Not sure exactly what it was, but it was excellent. Thank you for that. I think, is anyone, before I say anything, is anyone wanting to say anything, ask anything, comment on anything that Gail has brought up there? Jim? I think you might be on mute, Jim.
Too many things to click
There we
on.
go. Thanks.
Yeah, one of my emerging community projects in this corner is a new community centre for Dornoch. I'd like to be able to liaise with Gail to see how I can actually pick out some of the content from as described there to put into any application for funding, and I presume that would be quite a useful support to any application for funding.
Of course, Jim. Yeah, I can follow up with you on that. No problem at all.
Great, thanks.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Gail. Is there anybody else who wants to come in at all? Christine.
Hi, Gail. I was just wondering a little bit around the timescales for the reporting framework for the CPP. I think one of the biggest challenges across the partnership areas that I represent as well is that partnerships are obviously working quite effectively in many ways, but in terms of the data gathering to evidence how they are contributing to the HOIP is always challenging. And obviously my role is around CLD, community learning and development. And, similarly, we have kind of challenges in terms of reporting back on the community learning and development plan. So I just wondered if you were able to just kind of give a bit of information around the kind of timescales and mechanisms for that.
I can do my best, Kirsten, but I think, we're on a learning journey and still trying to figure that out. But in terms of the community planning partnership, we'll update and report annually. So from a community partnership, the kind of community partnerships perspective, we will look to annual kind of reporting in terms of the community partnership plans as well. But the community partnership plans are being developed at this moment in time, so that mechanism isn't quite in place yet. You mentioned CLD there as well in the reporting. From my perspective, what I need to do is speak to and engage with the CLD partnership, the strategic group there, about what their expectations are and how we can join these things together. Because I think there's been a bit of a void, for the want of a better term, in terms of how those things have worked together in the past. And I think we need to improve that, and we are looking at ways to improve that. Hopefully in the not too distant future we'll be able to kind of develop something jointly and kind of look to how we can progress that going forward. I know that's not a specific answer for you, Kirsten, but I'll do my best. We'll also be looking at in terms of the kind of core statutory partners producing an annual report from a Highland CPP level. So there will be an annual report going to elected members as part of council, and that kind of thing, and same with NHS and the other bodies there as well. But because we've only just started to implement the new HOIP, we'll be on a bit of a journey this year to work on those timescales and what that looks like. I couldn't have been any more vague there if I tried, Kirsten, sorry.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Gail. Thanks, Kirsten. Anybody else? Nothing on their mind? No. I suppose the key thing for me, I suppose, is just for us as a partnership as a whole, and for everyone who's linked directly or indirectly into the partnership, it's kind of trying to understand actually everything that Gail's spoken about there gives us our kind of the framework that we're working in and the direction that we should be heading in and the kind of outcomes we should be working towards and so on and so forth. And I think there was some reflections, and we made up last Friday, I think it was, and there was some reflection when we were looking at that. There's a lot of these outcomes and a lot of these objectives and the cross-cutting themes that Gail spoke about there. There's a lot of them that we already are working towards very heavily, and I keep saying that, and I will always say it, is that we can sometimes be our own worst critic for different things, and it's good that we actually sit and kind of look at what we're doing, and we should carry on doing that. But we do good things as well, and as a collective, there's people who actually are very fortunate for the work that you, as a group of 40-odd people who are sitting here today, have done and continue to do. So it's important to say that. So, okay, thank you, Gail. Thanks for that. That's helpful.
Thank
you. Richard, I think SRI is next on the agenda. Just hand over to you.
Thank you, Callum. And first of all, apologies if you're hearing any background noise. I've had to put my headset on because I've got folk working in the house at the moment. So if you hear any banging and thumping, it's that's what it is. Apologies for that. Okay, I haven't got any fancy slides or presentations to do. I'm just going to give you an update on the Sutherland Resilience Initiative as it sits at the moment and what my aspirations are for it. But it's not just about me, it's about the board of directors, which consists of the 6 Sutherland councillors. All of them, I think, today are on the call, so that's good to have everybody here. the Sutherland Resilience Initiative was established as a company limited by guarantee back in January 2024, and we've just coming to the end of our first financial year at the end of this month. It was built up, I think, initially because of my frustration about not getting things done when we're trying to have subgroups and getting, looking at things that are a problem. And I was chairing, and still do, chair the transport subgroup for the partnership. We had lots of meetings, and we all talked about the same things, and there was no progress. We couldn't engage with the commercial providers of transport, and despite the fact that there are a number of really good organisations across the county doing some great work, and the Transport of Tongue, for example, are doing a fantastic job. But there are large swathes of Sutherland where people have difficulty getting access to services, whether that be health, to employment, and education. There was people struggling across the whole county to get to these things, which are absolutely vital. And of course, we're looking at one eye at all times on the depopulation issue that we know exists, with a 15% reduction in population in parts of Sutherland, and between the last two censuses. Is that a word? Censuses.
It is
now. So we recognise that there is a big problem there, and one of the things that does drive depopulation is access to services and employment and all the rest of these things. So we're trying to work on that as a basis. So the transport part of it was what I consider to be the low-hanging fruit, in that we could actually do something about that fairly quickly. Although nothing in community development goes quickly, I have to say. It all depends on trying to find funding and taking things forward. So we looked at the transport side of things initially, and got some funding, and we carried out a survey into the access to transport across the county, in working with the Focus North group, and we sort of tagged on to their survey, and the results that came from that, and then we commissioned our own work done by Urban Foresight to develop an integrated transport plan for Sutherland. And that was very comprehensive, and they've done a fantastic job, and that is available to us now. And initially, we had looked at establishing up to 8 vehicles across the county, people carriers, so we can actually work sort of dial-a-bus kind of service things. But unfortunately, the funding for that wasn't forthcoming, so we had to modify our aspirations, and we have now got 4 electric vehicles in different parts of the county, work by voluntary organisations, taking people to health clinics in particular, but also to other access to other services as well. It's been running for about 9 months now in terms of the vehicles on the road, and it was a bit slow getting off the ground. They're all working now, but we've had some vehicle problems this last couple of weeks, so we're trying to address that at the moment. But in essence, it's been a positive impact. Some of the groups are working better than others, but it's I say we're working on that. So, but after having done that, I've also had expressions of interest from 4 different parts of the county as well, from Edgerton to Assynt, looking for a vehicle to do exactly what we're trying to do with the ones we've got on the road at the moment. So we're looking at funding for the additional vehicles going forward. But I have to stress that the SRI is not a council initiative. So it's been established with the 6 councillors from Sutherland, but it's because we all recognise the issues that aren't being addressed in Sutherland. And as Deirdre so correctly said earlier on, Sutherland seems to get missed out in so many different ways. We're squeezed in between Caithness and Ross-shire, and there's a lack of investment, generally speaking. So it was. With that in mind, we're looking at how we can actually promote Sutherland, and as I say, transport is low-hanging fruit, but we also recognise that other drivers of depopulation, like lack of childcare, lack of employment, lack of access to health service, lack of access to education and after-schools activities, and also the housing issues as well. That's we all know exist around the county, and all these things are sort of tied in together. For example, Up in Tongue, there's going to be a new care home established where the old Calasona was closed down because of a lack of employment, or lack of carers to work in the establishment. But there's a new care home coming along, and it's going to be opening, I think, 2027, something like that. But the same issue exists. We don't have staff to staff it. So it's a real concern to me that staffing and housing and all of these things need to be addressed to make sure that when this care home opens, it can actually function. But that's just one small example. But we know that we've got housing issues across the county, and Marianne Hutchinson's been working on the housing subgroup and has done a tower of work in that respect, and it's being addressed as we go forward. But what's missing, I think, is that while we all recognise the issues that exist in Sutherland, and we all come to our partnership meetings, and we all have best of intentions and working well together, we're having difficulty actually delivering the services that we know need to be done. And there's a lack of will on the part of statutory agencies, and I'm not talking about the ones around the table, I'm talking about a higher up level, to invest. And we know that there are opportunities on the go at the moment. We know there's opportunities on the north coast through Dunry. We know that there's opportunities coming from the Green Freeport down in Nig. And we know we've got areas that can be developed, and yet we're not getting that inward investment. Now, when the Green Freeport was first mooted, the catchment area for the tax advantages came all the way up to Golspie and Brora, but on the most recent map now, it stops at Dornoch. So we have been disadvantaged once again in terms of how we drive these things forward, and we don't have a group dedicated to promoting Sutherland day in, day out. And when I look at Caithness with the strong Chamber of Commerce that they have in place, they have that the ability to promote Caithness and everything that they've got on offer. And they've done a power of work as well. I mean, we've got great investment into Caithness through wind farms, and particularly the offshore element, and we've got Dunry, and there's a lot of money comes from Dunry to support the Caithness area. But we don't have that in Sutherland, and we don't have people actually shouting about how good Sutherland is and all of the advantages of coming to live and work in Sutherland is, and looking at that level of inward investment. So I see the SRI as, well, initially as a quasi Chamber of Commerce, so having somebody employed and promoting Sutherland and getting out there and attracting industry. We've got development parks for Golspie, for example, that is lying empty and has been lying empty for the last 25 years with plots of ground that have never been developed. Although I do have a commitment from Highlands Islands Enterprise that's going to be dealt with quite soon, and there's new business units going to be built, and I think in the next financial year. So that's really positive. But it's been a long time coming. And we've also got development areas in Brora and other parts of the county as well that we're not being seen as being developed, and we're not getting out there and reaching out to businesses to see what they need to come and live and invest in Sutherland. And I think that I see the SRI as doing that work more predominantly than anything else. We also need to be looking at how we actually work with people to get housing in place, how we actually look to ensuring that our kids get access to the after school activities that they so desperately need for their social and their and leisure requirements. And I think it's looking at what we can offer in Sutherland, and there's so much and right across the county from the north and the west, and there are people, for example, in Northwest 2045 who are working. I don't know what they do, although I'm told that they're doing great work, and I'd love to, I think it's really important that SRI has a meeting with them to establish exactly what they're doing, so we don't duplicate what they're doing, and see how we can work in partnership with them to promote the county. And what I really want, I suppose, is to promote the SRI as an operational arm for the partnership. Because what we do is recognising all of the issues across the county, but we don't have somebody dedicated to actually deliver the services that we know are needed everywhere. And with that company limited by guarantee, which the SRI is, we have the vehicle to do that. And I would really commend to the partnership that that's a step we need to go down that road, and to have the SRI as our own operational wing. And so that's where I see it going, and that's all I've got to say about it at the moment, but I'm happy to take any questions from anybody.
Thanks, Richard. Has anybody got anything they want to ask or comment on what Richard said there? No, you've explained things perfectly. Oh, Jim?
Just to put in a word of support for Richard's idea of a strategic body to represent the executive activity of the partnership. And I think it's something that is perhaps reinventing of a wheel, but I think it's a very strategic way forward.
Perfect. No, excellent. Thanks, Jim. David?
Yeah, I mean, Richard knows I've been supportive of this, and I think that I've said a number of times that one of the gaps that we have in community place planning is engaging with the people who are going to create the employment opportunities. And we understand the importance to communities of creating better paid jobs and creating employability, but it's really not a function of community planning to be able to engage with the businesses directly. So there is a gap there. And the other thing that I think is really important is that the bulk of our communities have now delivered really high quality place plans, which looks at things like new homes, opportunities for business units, employment opportunities, and it needs somebody to actually coordinate that and to act on the information that we have and act on the community's behalf to try and ensure that investment can come to fulfil the wishes of the community to repopulate our area with younger people and creating spaces where people can live and work. So I think it dovetails nicely with the activities of the SCP and can potentially fulfill the areas where community planning can't get involved in. So I would fully support it.
Excellent. Thanks, David. Fiona?
Yeah, I was just going to say, David, that the employability team have just taken on employer engagement coordinator. So part of the remit will be to liaise with businesses around home working. So we've been working with large corporations to try and ring fence some of these posts to the north, or maybe even offer guaranteed interviews, you know, where people can't get childcare or where they have a lack of transport and things like that. But also working with local businesses about how we fill their vacancies, you know. So we will have that. We do have that on board now, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, Fiona, I think that's great, and it's good to hear that. I think one of the things we have as a barrier to that is poor levels of broadband in a number of areas around the county, and that's one of the things we need to be looking into and seeing how we can improve that, because due to the remote and rural nature of Sutherland in so many parts of it, then we need to the home working is an ideal opportunity for people to do that, especially when if you're in the middle of, I don't know, the county and you haven't got access to childcare, then working from home is just absolutely perfect for so many people. So I'm happy to help in any way I can to make sure that we can get people access to these services and be able to do it. So yeah, it's great to hear that you're actually working on that as well. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Richard. I was just actually thinking when you were talking there about, you know, it's crazy we're actually talking about access to broadband. You know, that wouldn't be happening if we were in the middle of Glasgow or Edinburgh or something like that. That's just, anyway. Michael, sorry.
Yes, Callum, on that very point, we should be aware, of course, that BT is going to be switching off their system. That's going to leave a lot of people with difficulty with the likes of their smartphone, their smart meters, etc., etc. And we should be probably encouraging more people to take up the land line that's been put round all the villages to get linked up. Otherwise, they're going to find themselves in great difficulty with communications, etc., etc.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Definitely, Michael. I think I was getting progressed to some of the subgroups anyway, but yeah. Donald?
Yes, there's change over to digital landline, for want of a better word. And BT said, oh, it's okay, you can use your mobile in case of emergency. Well, we had an emergency last night, not the night before. The power was off for an hour and a half, and there was no means of communicating, because the minute that the power goes off, our landlines are off, our broadband is off, everything is off, because it all comes from the one mast. And that was the situation in Durness 2 nights ago. The other thing is, you're talking about encouraging jobs. We used to have on the local fish farm 6 locals working on it. Now we've got 6 people coming from as far away as Ayrshire, working shifts. We have not one local person working on the fish farm. Because the people that have been housed up here will not get off their backsides and work. And that means that every time when there's a council house empty, if it's not allocated to a local, then it's filled by someone that doesn't want to work. And that is the situation we have every time. Okay.
I think that's a very good point, Donald, if I'm honest. I think we have a growing population that isn't working, often because of the coming to this part of the world to retire, and they and that puts a pressure on us in terms of they will then to care needs as go forward, and that's really creates a big issue for us. And I'm really disappointed here that you don't have any locals working on the fish farm. That's quite shocking, I have to say.
Okay. Thanks, Donald. Thanks, Richard. I think so just to kind of wrap up this side of things, thanks for everything you said, Richard. Thanks for everyone's input around about that. I suppose a key thing there would be, well, there's a couple of key things. One is, and I think I'm right to say, is, Richard, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you would still encourage new members, any new members that wanted to kind of come alongside the SRI or come and help out. And presumably, is it a case that you would still be looking for people to be involved in the board, the directors as such? Is that, am I right to say that?
Yeah, and the idea was that it's been set up by the 6 councillors because we wanted to get it off the ground, and we've been trying to get organised to have an EGM to actually float it more and have a wider representation on the board from across the county. So because while we're sharing one county, there are many communities, and they all have the different issues, but we should be all working for the good of the county. And so we're really keen for the councillors to be able to take a step back from the board and to have it up and running and being run by the Sutherland communities. But I really would suggest that what we need is a chair from the partnership to take the control of the board. And to me that makes perfect sense, and to drive the agenda of the partnership, but also to seek the interests of the local population in different communities as well, so we can make it truly holistic going forward. But as I say, as councillors, we can probably be of more use not being on the board than we can be on the board. So because we're limited to things we can do because of having to declare an interest in so many different ways. So that to me would be the ideal, is to get an EGM running soon. I think we're now in a situation where I'll have to have an EGM because the end of our financial year is coming up at the end of this month. And an AGM probably at the beginning of May would probably be ideal to start going down that route if we're going to change the governance of the organisation. If the partnership is prepared to actually endorse it.
Okay, perfect. And I think that was the final point I was going to make, Richard. I think I'd probably want, if everyone was in agreement, I would probably look for the minutes to endorse the fact that actually as a community partnership, we would endorse the SRI as being, as Richard's put it, what will the vision to have the SRI as the operating arm of the SCP. The issue with the SCP as a whole is that we can do a lot of things, as Richard has said, and we can push forward a lot of networking and vision and so on and so forth. But when it comes to actually physically and practically doing things at times, that can be challenged by the fact that we don't have a structure that allows us to have employees, we don't have a structure that allows us to hold money and all these bits and pieces, whereas the SRI would have the ability to do that. So if everyone is in agreement with that, I would look for the minutes to reflect that as being the kind of direction of travel for the SCP and the SRI, and then we will it'll take evolution from there as well anyway, but yeah, okay, thank you for that. Thanks, Richard, for your work into that. And I've said this before, I said this at the last meeting just on Friday. I think Sutherland's very fortunate to have councillors who are as invested in what they do and try as hard as they do to improve things. So it's important to say that, because sometimes councillors, like everybody else, get a hard time. But thank you, Richard, and for your efforts into that. So right, I really am going to play about with this agenda a wee bit now, because I'm completely off piste. So I'm going to jump onto section 6 now, and I'll come back on section 5 if we have time at the end, the subgroup updates, primarily because we have discussed heavily ourselves in the SCP last week around about the subgroups, and there's a lot of good work happening within them. There's some other areas, I'm not going to go into detail at the moment, but there's other areas, for example, the employability subgroup that we have Fiona in through the LEP, the local employability programme, does a massive amount of work there, and so there's a bit of kind of actual duplication there with the subgroup. Actually, the subgroup for the SCP, actually there's a lot of work already happening with Fiona and her day job and the LEP. So there's a bit of work there that we've kind of picked up on that we need to kind of align properly, and bits and pieces like that. So I'm going to jump on number 6 at the moment, because I'm just aware that number 6 often ends up at the end and rush through, and I kind of feel bad a wee bit about that. So can I, Christine, I don't know, I was going to come to High Life Highland, but because I think Trish was going to give an update on it last time, and she was right at the very end. I don't know if
yeah, well, actually, we're now Highland Council, so Trish
Okay.
is my colleague, and I'm
Okay.
representing today on behalf of Trish, because unfortunately she wasn't able to attend. So just quick caveat, Friday's not a non-working day for me, hence why often when these meetings are going on, I'm kind of listening in, but not necessarily partaking, because I have a child just badly watching TV at the moment while I try and get involved. So if things go awry, then you'll know why, and I'll just send out a presentation. So I'll do what I can within my restrictions that I have.
Yeah.
So thank you for giving us time to speak and giving us a space in the agenda today. I really just wanted to, many of you might know my colleague Trish Matthews, who works out of the Broader Learning Zone. So she's been in the area for many, many, many years and already has a lot of really good partnerships established in the area. But I just wanted to kind of give a bit of an overview today about our service, a bit about CLD, and really a bit of a call out, possibly a little bit of what my role involves, and also just a bit of a call out about how we can kind of add value to what's happening in the area already. So I will, again, I might fly through things as best I can today, just because I'm aware lots of other people need to speak as well. So just give me a wee sec. So we were previously part of High Life Highland. Our adult learning and youth work services were brought into the council in December. We're part of the community learning and development team. We're the community learning element. Our community development partners are also part of the wider team. And essentially, I'm sure you probably know about our service, but in case you don't, the primary purposes are really around communication, numeracy, digital skills, using kind of core skills in everyday life, and a bit about voice and participation, which I think is interesting in the conversation around the partnership, because actually it has been highlighted at a HMI inspection level that there is an absence of sometimes the voice within the partnership structure. So I think it's worth thinking about how we do that. It's not necessarily always providing a space in this meeting, but just thinking about how we can strengthen that voice and get people forward, particularly to join boards and things like that was previously mentioned. in terms of our service, we're small, and we have an allocation from the Scottish Government for adult learning, and we use our resources the best that we can to cover the area. But obviously Sutherland is a challenging area for us because it's so wide, and all the other issues that have been kind of discussed today in terms of rurality and transport, etc. So in Brora is where we have a base here, which Trish works out of, and she probably tends to work more East Sutherland, Central Sutherland, but obviously we are aware that Sutherland is bigger than that, and my role really in Sutherland and Wester Ross and other areas that are not considered like Sim 1, 2 or 3 areas is really just looking at how we can capacity build for adult learning. So I think that's part of my call to action today, is just kind of looking at how we can link up better to not necessarily be the person who's in the front delivering it, but how we can also train staff, increase awareness of adult learning, look at going to where services are happening and adding value to that. So our role is really varied in terms of what we do. It could be things that we take for granted. Some people can't read a bedtime story to their child. Some people can't help their kids with their homework or pass a theory test independently. So we're there to kind of really help people with skills that many of us take for granted that we can do in our day-to-day life. And it's really just about helping people make positive change in their life. And I go back to that part that CLD is this glue that holds communities together, and as we begin to strip back these services, it then begins to have an impact on other services within our communities. There was a review of community learning and development in December, and HMI and the Scottish Government came together, and this is what they said were the impacts. It's about tackling inequality, supporting mental health, and I think in this area for me, particularly for Sutherland, I suppose a lot of my work is going to have to be around volunteering, and I know that's probably a moot point because it's just so challenging now with cost of living to get volunteers on board. But for Sutherland, that is key for us to be able to reach those outlying communities, because while we have the centre in Brora and we can do outreach, obviously that doesn't always extend far enough. I think I seem to have muted myself by mistake. So you probably know the Brora Learning Zone. This is where Trish Matthews, sorry, it's not a great picture here, but they have a well-established centre in Sutherland. It's very creative, but that's not solely what we do. So I kind of wanted to highlight that today, because many people might know the place based on the social enterprise which we run, and many of the kind of creative activities that happen in Brora Learning Centre. But for many people, it can be a starting point, and then they can kind of go on to...
I think you've gone on mute again, Christian.
Yeah, sorry, I'm struggling with like changing slides and muting at the same time, so apologies.
No, it's perfect.
In terms of kind of highlighting a bit of like what we're doing collectively, we've kind of partnered up with Lockview Rural Training and run a couple of sessions as an Acre of Knowledge programme, where we've worked with a range of partners in kind of embedded literacies. So it's a lot around climate literacies, health and well-being, developing enterprise, animal care. We've also been up in Kinlochbervie trying to run some family learning days, but it's been more one-offs, which I know is not necessarily going to give that consistent support to those communities. So we need to kind of think about how we can work with those communities to offer something that's a bit more consistent. We're linking up with Lead Scotland around digital skills and personal finance. LIRG, there's been a lot of work together with Trish around carbon literacy, and we're recently working with Dornick as well in terms of developing some products that can be sold in their shop in terms of around themes that the Dornick Museum promotes, like Vikings and things like that. So lots of meaningful pieces of work going on that really Trish would sell better than I would.
You've gone mute again, Christian.
I know I'm changing the slides and it keeps muting, so but I can see it's happening. I get a wee bleep, so I know when it's going. I'm going to try and move on and share because it's doing this annoying mute thing. I just wanted to highlight some of we did an extensive needs analysis last year where we went out and liaised with lots of different community partners, as well as looking at a lot of data around the area. And the main kind of areas that came out in terms of needing support with regards to adult learning were cost of living and budgeting, a demand for rural social enterprise skills, personal development and confidence building, social integration and employability for refugees, because some of you may know that there are a small number of Ukrainian refugees in and around the area who we work closely with, employability and core skills, digital skills and capacity building. So, you know, my challenge when I think about what can we do, you know, it's me and Trish and a handful of volunteers. Really, what impact can we make? And I think our impact is wide. I don't want to underestimate what we do by any means, but around the digital inclusion kind of side of things, and particularly the conversations we've been having today about the impact of being in a rural area and the lack of digital infrastructure, which really doesn't help much, but nonetheless there still is that move to digital. So how can we support people to get online and to do these kind of essential day-to-day tasks? So we are piloting a digital leaders program, and I've been running this in a couple of other areas. So we've been trialing it over in Gairloch, we've been trialing it down in Granton-on-Spey, where we've been partnering with the local school community for the upper school to try to get some digital leaders to train up, and they can get accreditation as part of that, and then supported in a community venue. They would run some digital skills sessions. Now, I know that's not everybody's bag, and not every person would necessarily want to be supported by a young leader, but nonetheless it gives a kind of opportunity for intergenerational learning and that kind of thing. So I think I put a call out today in terms of if there is an interest in that, to try and partner up, and maybe youth clubs or other activities that are running. I don't know, Go Golspie's got a good space, so I know that Red Chair have been up before doing digital skills. Could we partner up and look at how we could roll out a programme wider in Sutherland to maximise our impact? So I'm not going to take too much longer. I just wanted to show a couple of nice wee pictures that might bring a wee bit of life to what we do, and then I'll probably wrap up there and let others speak. So yeah, just sort of bringing to life the creative side of what we do. You know, there's a lot of beautiful works that are developed. The Lockview Acre of Knowledge project has been really successful, and we're looking at kind of continuing to develop that. And there's a lot of social enterprise skills within that, and we were talking about the importance of that for rural economies and for potential jobs. We're also working around family numeracy, and we've offered Math Magicians, which is like a family numeracy project in Golspie and Brora. We'd be interested to kind of look at potential to widen that out and run in other areas. But the biggest challenges for us are what are felt nationwide. You know, these challenges that are up here today are not just unique to our area, they affect every local authority in Scotland. And it's been highlighted in the review of CLD services last year that there are major gaps, and obviously that's down to the Scottish Government to decide how they want to resource it. But in the interim, you know, I think while this is the situation, and while we try and be as efficient as we can with our resources, we still need to work collectively and collaboratively. So a call out today really is just to think where we can add value to what's going on in Sutherland area, where is there opportunities for partnership more, you know, so that we can make a more sustainable offer for adult learners to bring them back. So I'll wrap up there. I did have more, but I think I don't want to take up any more time today. I can send out slides, and you know, I welcome conversations with anybody around the table today, and I'll put my details in the chat. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kirsten. That was excellent. It's funny, actually, we were talking last week about CLD when we met up, so it's absolutely kind of on point. I'm probably just not going to open it up at the moment, just because I'm aware I've got another few people to try and get through. But I think, Kirsten, if you were to share the slides, we could then send it out more widely from there. And I think it's, yeah, what you said there about actually people not being able to do, it kind of brings it home quite heavily. Some people might not be able to do homework with their children, and they might not be able to read my story and all these bits and pieces. That's, that kind of just shows you some of the, what I said at the very beginning, the challenges that we have and the impact that we can actually have as well. But sometimes you just literally wouldn't see that impact. You're not going to know when you made that wee bit of difference and somebody's sitting down and tell their child a story or doing homework with their child and has an impact on the next generation coming through. You don't know it, but we do it. So thank you, Kirsten. That was excellent. Okay, I think Phil is next item on the agenda, Northwest 2045. Is it, Phil, are you going to give a quick update into that, Phil?
Yeah, okay, thank you. I have sent a written update to Scott, so I'll be very, very quick. There are kind of 5 areas that the Northwest 2045 is working on at the moment. The first is governance. It's about getting the community councils involved in a new board that's going to oversee and guide the Northwest 2045 in the future. The Regional Land Use Partnership continues with a range of activities, got funding for another couple of years. There's some kind of policy research stuff that's going on, including intergenerational research on collecting land-based experience and knowledge. But there's also some practical stuff going on through Land Plus projects, some tree planting, footpath projects and the like, working with the schools. That's mostly based in Kinlochbervie. A socioeconomic report has been commissioned for the area by Bigger Economics, and I'm sure that will be shared when that's ready. Be a useful point of reference, certainly for future monitoring future progress. The repopulation work, Boyd is on the call. I'll let him come in if he wants to, but very quickly he is working away on a number of housing projects across the patch. The details are in the update. He's also working on local place plans. He helped with KLB and is assisting Durness and Scary. And then finally, there's a lot of work going on around early learning and childcare. And again, Marianne is on the call. I'll let her come in if she wants to. But basically, they're looking at, there's a partnership there with the council, HIE, CALA and Northwest 2045, looking at flexible childcare models, including a single care model, which would provide care across the generations. So that's all I'm going to say. If either Boyd or Marianne wishes to add any more, I'll just hand over to them. Thanks, Callum.
Thanks, Phil. Do you know, Boyd, Marianne, I don't know, or has Phil covered it, or do you want to add any more?
Nothing for me.
Okay, thanks. Boyd.
No, I think it's all in that update that I passed on to Phil, but I'm happy for anyone to ask things or get in touch with me later if that's helpful. Thanks.
Thanks, Marianne. Joanna, that's excellent to hear all the work that's happening there. That's some really good and really relevant things getting covered there. So thanks, Phil, and thanks, Boyd and Marianne as well. So that's excellent. I'll go on to SCAN now, so the Southern Community Anchor Network. Angela, I don't know, Angela's.
I am here, but Karina's still here too, I think, and she was going to do the update. She's done a written update, which everybody will see. Are you still there, Karina?
Yeah, I can give the update.
Great. Thanks, Karina. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Just for those that don't know, the SCAN update is for Sutherland Community Anchor Network. It's a group that meets usually once a month, and it's made up of mainly development trusts, but also other community groups and some community council representatives across Sutherland. So as I say, we meet normally every 4 weeks, had our last meeting on the 11th of February, and we're meeting again next week. What we tend to discuss in those meetings it's very much about what all of the groups are doing, what their current projects are that they're working on, the challenges they face. We share information and look at identifying partnership opportunities as well. So just very briefly, one of the main things we've been focusing on recently has been around some community sessions that are happening in a few weeks. We're working with Voluntary Group Sutherland on those, where John Sturrock is coming up to deliver 4 sessions within the communities of Lerg, Golspie, KLB, and for the north there's a session at Armadale Hall as well. So I'll share some information in the chat about that, and some further details as well about how people can register. Anyone is welcome along to those sessions. It's very much about trying to get different representatives from community groups and organisations together, just to look at how communication can be a bit better, to understand what each other is doing, and just to get people working better across these communities. So everyone is welcome to come along. I'll share the details of that, and people can register and sign up for those if they're interested. And there's some contact details as well if people want to find out more. So I'll share all of that, but that's probably all that we need to cover at the moment with what the group's been discussing. So that's all from me.
Perfect. Thanks, Karina. I think the key thing is get everyone together, doesn't it? And it means that we're bringing everyone together to actually to kind of get brains together and head in the right direction. I'm sorry, I'm aware there's people putting things in the chat, but I'm not actually. I was going to say because I'm a man, I'm not really sure. Yeah, because I'm a man, actually, I'm not very good at actually doing two things at once. So if there's anyone putting things in the chat, yeah, just say put up your hand and then say. Is there anything wants to come back about to Karina about the scan? Is there anything? No. Perfect. Okay. Thanks, Karina. That's helpful. Okay, we'll carry on through the agenda then. So the next one was, I don't know if Gail's still here. Highland Community Planning Partnership update, Gail. I don't know if you're.
Of course I'm here. I wouldn't be anywhere else, Callum.
I wasn't sure. I thought I saw something flash up earlier on, and like I say, it wasn't kind of. I don't know. I don't know. I appreciate you've given an update about the hype there, but I don't know if you wanted to give an update just about the partnership and.
Yeah, if that's okay, just a couple of minutes. I'll be very quick. So some people on the call may have met one of the officers from my team, either Jane Young or Jamie Kellis previously. So internally, we've had a little bit of a rejig in terms of the officers and myself and who is taking on and working with which community partnerships across Highland. So you'll all be delighted to know that at your quarterly meetings, you'll have me from now on. So I can see you're all celebrating at that fact. So I'll be in attendance in the meetings, and I'll be working with Callum and the core kind of members and things about progressing and supporting the partnership from a central perspective. Now, Scott did share the Highland CPP update paper just a couple of days ago. That's one of the tools that my team and I have implemented over the last year to, keep community partnerships up to date with what's been talked about and discussed at Highland level. So they do come out quarterly. The others that have been circulated are available on the website, but certainly Scott shared the most recent one, which was dated January 25. So I wanted to pick out a couple of things from that. So in terms of my team over the last quarter or kind of tail end of last year, October, November time, we hosted and arranged a number of community networking events for some of the partnerships. We did 5 of the partnerships in total. So those events were about bringing community groups and public sector partners together to showcase and share about the services and the activities going on in those areas. So I'll be hopeful that we'll be able to add Sutherland to that list later on this year. It'll be about October, November time. So that would be really positive. And the other thing that we've been developing is something called a priority action tracker. So that's a tool to kind of collate and pull together the priorities and actions that community partnerships are talking about into one kind of document. So I chatted about that with some of the core partners on Friday. So I've started to develop that for Sutherland. So hopefully we'll have an item on an upcoming agenda about that and what that'll look like. From a Highland perspective, at the most recent December CPP board meeting, we talked about the Highland Housing Challenge. Chief Exec of Highland Council gave a little bit of a presentation around that. So following on from that, there will be a bit of a housing challenge update at the Partnership Coordinating Group next week, which is the invite's open to the Chair, Vice Chair and the officers from Sutherland. And Derek, the Chief Executive for Highland Council, will be on the agenda for the annual conference this year as well. So certainly housing has been talked about quite a lot at a Highland level. There's another couple of updates that were discussed as well. There's some new actions being developed for the Active Highland Strategy, and there was a report on the year 3 for the CLD plan as well. But they've gone up and will be available on the on the CPP website if people are interested to look at those and to follow up on what's going on there. I won't go through that in any more detail. It was in the written update that everybody's got. And just to reiterate that the annual conference is taking place on the 25th of April this year. I have started to circulate invites. The speakers, I've got some speakers I'm still working on, but like I say, Derek Brown certainly is going to speak from a Highland Council perspective about housing. He's confirmed for the agenda. I'm hoping to get a bit of a promotional flyer confirmed, hopefully early next week, to get that sent out as well. So if you do see it, please do circulate it and share it. There is a very short form to fill in for me just to register your attendance for that event, and I look forward to engaging more with Sutherland over the next quarters and ongoing into the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Gail. No, thank you, and thank you for your help. I think there's I think probably the easiest way to put it for everyone else is that actually, so Gail's team gives structure to all the partnerships, and certainly I know as chair of the partnership, it certainly helps me to actually kind of understand a wee bit more of what we're feeding into, and then some of what we're trying to then do from that feed, I suppose. So thank you, Gail. Thanks for both your presentations today. So appreciate that. David, I think the next item's project support team update and funding.
I think it mentioned at the last SCP meeting. So KSDT has been hosting project support staff for the SCP off and on since 2017. The current staffing is Scott and Miranda, and they are funded by the UK Shared Prosperity Fund via the Highland Council and with some match funded from High. I've been very supportive of the SCP support staff over the years, but the reality is that funding comes to an end at the end of March, the end of this month. Miranda is employed till then, but will then move on to a new role with the trust, so she will remain in post, remain in place, supporting projects in our part of the world, but won't be part of the SCP support team. And Scott will move into a role for the next 4 months, looking at developing the SRI. And as Richard said yesterday, it's kind of intrinsically linked to the SCP. So there will still be some SCP support, but it will be much reduced. So the reality is that there will be very, very limited support through staffing for the SCP in the coming months. We have put forward a suggestion that there is a good case to be made to ring fence some CRF funding for community support going forward, but that doesn't necessarily have to come to a QSDT. It doesn't have to come to for staffing, but I think that there is a good case that the SCP has a track record of delivering right across Sutherland, and it would be a good investment if some of the CRF funding was put towards that. But how that materialises, we're still yet to fully understand, because the funding round for staffing costs for the CRF isn't open yet. So that's where we stand. So personally, given that this is their last meeting that we know of, I'd really like to thank Scott and Miranda and Fiona as well, who's on the meeting, who was previously in the role before Miranda, and also Natalie, who was in post before that, for the work that they've put in to support the partnership over the last little while. Hopefully we can resolve something so that there is support staff for community planning across Sutherland. How that materialises is yet to be seen, but that's the situation where we are, Callum.
Yeah, okay, thanks, David. And I know we've spoken about that. We spoke about that last Friday as well. So there is a kind of plan next wee while to try and actually identify how to get funding and what for. I suppose, if you want to put it like that, specifically for what for. Not so much that actually it's just identifying what it's for will maybe potentially identify then what funding sources are available. Marianne?
The CRF funding has opened
just in the last day, I've been sharing it like mad on social media because I had no time to do anything else, but I think it is opened again now.
I think it's just for capital costs, the Marianne, this first round. So it's just for shovel-ready projects.
Okay, sorry. I just caught sight of it. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. Thanks, Marianne. Chloe?
Hi, thanks, Callum. Sorry. No, I was just going to jump on there and say that the round that's opening on Monday is for capital only projects. However, we do have, and this maybe isn't so relevant to you, David, we do have small grants pots opening up through HDSI and through the Climate Hub. So they'll be offering small grants pots for revenue funding of up to £10,000. And our capital round is between 5 to 100,000. So that information should be available and on our website for that round of funding, either later today or on Monday when the applications open. And in regards to the sort of CRF, HDCF, PBIP funding, so the allocation has been made to Sutherland now and across Highland. And at the moment, what is happening is that officers will be liaising with members to speak with them to find out what their priorities are based on emerging priorities from adopted place plans, and then also then following those discussions when or if they want to open for open calls for fundings or for challenge funds. So there's been a slight delay, I suppose, from our team because we've been flat out with year-end claims and making sure all of the current projects get their final claims in, but we are moving this forwards now and hopefully working with members to find out those priorities and move things forwards. So that's just a small update from me. Thank you.
Thanks, Chloe. I suppose I would just probably want to just agree with what David said that at this point, and I'm hopeful that actually we'll find a resolution to this anyway. I mean, but Miranda obviously will move on to another role. Still will be with us in Sutherland, but not an SCP. And Scott and Miranda have done a cracking job. And I suppose it's worth saying as well, David's done. You know, this is the thing that actually just what I touched on a bit when we were talking about Richard with the SRI. The SCP can't host neither Scott nor Miranda or anybody else for that matter. And David has been doing that. A grand job of that, and without David having done the work into that, then we'd be in a much worse place as well. So it's important just to put kind of gratitude on record there for David and the Kyle Sutherland Development Trust. So, but this is again, it goes back to the point around about having the SRI as a kind of functioning arm of the SCP that would then allow David and his team to concentrate on actually solely on the Kyle Sutherland Development Trust, I suppose, and not actually be. I was going to use a bird. I don't even use the word. I was going to use the word burden, but you know, I mean, have the extra responsibility of actually of enabling the SCP to do what they have been doing for the last number of years. So, David, sorry, you want to come back in?
Yeah, I was just going to kind of say the same, Callum, that maybe the SRI is the appropriate vehicle going forward, and it's not that, you know, if we get that in the position to do that. As far as the burden, I think the community planning across Sutherland, because our communities are also linked together and face the same issues. I don't see it as a burden for KSDT at all. I think you see it's important and it benefits KSDT, benefits the entirety of the county. But I've always said right through my time here that there's no need for KSDT to be the employers of the support team. I think we've contributed and done a good job while we had it, and we would be certainly open to continuing with that. However, it's not something that needs to happen, and I'm not pitching here for an opportunity for KSDT to continue with this. It's what's best for the SCP, and if that's the SRI, then I'll fully support that and see how it goes forward. But I think we just got a wee bit of thinking to do, given this gap of support. But as I say, yeah, the staffing that we've had over the years has been absolutely first class, superb, and I'm very proud of all of them that worked there. So hopefully, we can find a solution to continue to help support Sutherland, because it's a very important place to support.
Yeah, definitely. So, thanks, David. So yeah, there is a kind of plan there. I'm going to pull together some people to try and kind of understand where we go forward from here. So that'll hopefully take its course over the coming weeks. So finally, I think the only other thing is and I know I've missed out number 5 altogether, but the only thing in number 6 there is Golspie and Dornoch, Planet Youth, Vicky Clark. I don't know if Vicky is here. No. Okay, I'll just move on through that. I think Vicky spoke at the last meeting anyway, so it's good. I suppose I'm just going to summarise, and I'll just just the last 10 minutes. I'm just going to summarise pretty much the subgroups, and I mean, just a couple of key points on it. If any of the chairs of the subgroups want to come in on anything I say, then please do so. I'm deliberately not coming to you as individually, because we've spoken about it last Friday, and we spoke about it before that as well. And so I suppose the updates, I suppose, across the groups, they are established as they are there. I mentioned there the employability one in terms of actually the work's happening under another angle, if you want to put it like that. So I suppose the SCP will have to just review how we probably then feed into the work that Fiona is doing, rather than actually having a subgroup solely for that, because it's already, the work's already been done. I suppose the other thing that I would probably just want to say is that the groups come together. Richard's touched on it. There's times where it's easier to get things done than there are other times. Sometimes it becomes a bit more kind of difficult to work towards what it is, or to understand what we can work towards coherently if the levers aren't just as easily accessible as they would be in a for example, a kind of functioning body that had finance and kind of assets and kind of resources to pull on. So it just becomes that bit more difficult. But the key thing I want to say is that there is if anybody within the wider partnership and everyone that's here today feels that they have anything that they can bring, or anything that they would want the partnership to focus on in these subgroups, then please put it towards me, and I will have a look at it and actually and see if we can fit things into the subgroup that fit towards the kind of the objectives that Gail was talking about. Because we do come together, we do network, but the key thing is that to do things, it requires people to do things. And the point that I would make there is that all too often it's down to a small group of people in every walk of life to actually try and do these things. And when we sit down and look at what we can do and what we're not doing, what we could do differently, and so on and so forth, there is many things we can actually come up with that actually fit the bill of all those things. But actually, to actually achieve them, it takes people doing things. It takes, and there's a, using the councillors as an example at the moment, the councillors are involved in many things, and then actually they're chairing some of these groups as well. It's pulling on the same small resource. So if there's anybody here today that's not involved in the subgroups that actually feels that they would want to bring something to it, or there's things the subgroup could focus on, then please say, not necessarily right now because I've got 9 minutes left or something like that, but email me and we will look at it. There are some of the subgroups that, and I'll take responsibility for this. There are some of the subgroups that actually could do with some extra support in terms of actually best understanding where we go forward from there. We spoke about that around with Sutherland Cares last Friday. Sutherland Cares has got a massive opportunity, in many senses a massive remit, but it's actually then trying to work out, well, what do we particularly focus on? And so part of that is I'm kind of drawing together a small steering group that will frankly be accountable for what happens in the partnership a bit more. And because at the moment the subgroups are left to push forward what the subgroups do, and sometimes unfairly so, because actually the subgroups should be feeding into a leadership group, if you want to put it like that, rather than actually just being expected to achieve things and because they exist, if you want to put it like that. So the point I'm making as a whole there is, holistically, I want to thank the chairs that do the work they do, but I also want to kind of reiterate the point that actually I think it's for probably me ultimately as chair to put something in place, a leadership group in place and a steering group in place that supports and the work that the subgroups do. But as a final point, if you take everything we've spoken about for the last while here, there is a lot of things happening. They're happening across a broad range of groups, subgroups, the Northwest 2045 different groups that we've spoken about, and it's important to recognise that, and it's just trying to build on that, I suppose, sometimes. So that's where we're at. I suppose just finally, I think I don't think number 7 there, we've got community matters and any other competent business. I don't know if anybody wants to bring up anything that we haven't spoken about already today. If not, I'll just carry on just to number 8 then. So the next meeting is in June. We've got so we spoke about trying to, during the winter, we spoke about trying to kind of take the meeting out and about again. So the intention, I think, would be, I think loosely we've spoken about Lairg. I don't know if that's necessarily fully confirmed, but the intention would be that we would meet in Lairg in person and hybrid. So it'll it'll be in person and in hybrid. So the opportunity will be there for people who can't travel to Lairg to still meet online, but certainly I and others will be in Lairg in person, and I'll try and get some good biscuits to generate some kind of attendance in person, so that everyone who can will travel there. So I think that's where we're at. The further meetings will be in September and December, and I think that is that. Is there anything that I have missed? Is there anything that I should have touched on? Bearing in mind I've got 4 minutes left. Otherwise, I think I saw something flashing up about CLD and the subgroups and themes and so on and so forth. I think I saw that in the chat. I haven't actually looked at it, but Kirsten, you want to come in?
Yeah, no, sorry, I just popped that in the chat and I realised it's late in the day to bring this in. It was just Angela stood down as the CLD rep for the partnership, and obviously there is a gap at the moment in terms of the CLD rep, and we do need to report back on that too. So I was just kind of throwing it out there in terms of how we might look maybe in the next meeting at, you know, how we report on CLD and do we need a rep? And I've put the themes in the chat for people to reflect on. Thanks.
Perfect. Thanks, Kirsten. I think the other thing that we did spoke about last Friday that we felt that the SCP could maybe look at was disabilities was another aspect of things that we're talking about. So there's CLD and disability, I think, is two of the things we spoke about. We could do more around about. So we'll look at that in the coming weeks. So so I suppose just to give a bit of confidence, my intention would be in the next fortnight I'll have a meeting set up to look at the funding again and to give focus to that. And I've got meetings with some of the statutory partners in the coming next week, actually, and the core partners. And again, I would look to have that steering group set up this month, towards the end of this month or thereabouts, certainly early April, if not. And then that'll meet regularly after that until we've got till we support everyone else who's doing the good work that already happens. So I think that's it. Can I just thank everyone? There's 40 odd people here. I've managed to bore about 10 people into submission, so I think we've lost about 10. So I appreciate other people have got meetings, but thank you everyone. Sincerely, thank you everyone, and just keep doing what we do, and we will keep trying to improve what we're trying to improve, and we will carry on delivering for the people that need it, and kind of addressing the inequalities that we are. So thank you very much. Hope you have a good Friday, and we will see you again in another quarter, if not before. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed.
Goodbye.
Cheers.